seconds to go. Right, let's get things underway. Apologies for absence. Chris is not here.
I think Chris is an apology, and I'm hesitating as I think you thought Gemma was coming, but she's a potential apology. She wasn't sure.
Richard said she was coming,
Yeah.
he thought, but she was out with the dog, so she probably thinks it stops. What I said.
Well, anyway, we'll see. She is.
Disclosure of interests. Public questions. Members of the public may ask questions and make representations. Public questions are limited to 10 minutes in total, and it may be necessary to limit the time to each person in accordance with standing orders 4DJ. Please note that the Parish Council may only take a decision where the item raised is listed elsewhere on the agenda, and any decision would be in the normal course of events. So, Anne.
Can I ask you a question? What happened with the meeting with the council?
What happened?
They cancelled it while having received the legal attack on their planning. They've said everything is on hold for 18 months while their lawyers and planners consider what their next step is.
But they are. It was a postponement. They are planning to rearrange the meeting. It's a postponement.
Yes, sorry, it was a postponement, not. Once their legals and planners have decided what their next step is, then there'll be another meeting.
Is that because, did you say because they've received the claim?
They've received the letter before claim, and they wanted to postpone the meeting so they would have time to review that.
Have you submitted the claim as well then?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've submitted both?
Yeah.
They haven't received the claim form yet, because that has to go to the court first.
We're attacking them on all levels. Gary, do you have your hand up?
Yeah. This relates to the minutes of 6th of March. Minute 196B, probably best if I read the minute out. The resident started to comment on agenda item 14. This was a contract for GH.
Excuse me, Gary, can you speak up about
Yeah,
that?
Yeah. A resident started to comment on agenda item 14, contract for GH landscaping. Councillor Cruden stopped the resident advisor meeting that, as there were a number of apologies, he did not, as acting chair, intend to call for a vote on item 14. The resident stated that the agenda was being used to predetermine the result. Councillor Cruden asked the resident to put his questions in writing to the Parish Council so that these could be answered. I've not had an answer to my questions, and Chair Souter has accused me of wasting time on a witch hunt by email. The question is, can you now answer the questions you promised to answer? I should say Councillor Cruden has just informed me he unfortunately didn't see my email and has undertaken to answer the questions, so it's up to yourselves.
Your queries are noted. We will deal with the contract question when we get to it.
Yeah. So the second minute is minute number 208, which again is under contract with GH Landscaping. I'll read the minute out. Councillor Cruden reiterated that he did not intend to take a vote on this matter due to the low number of members in attendance. However, he raised 3 points for consideration. First, there was no actual report document sent to the Parish Council by Northumbria Police following the investigation. Secondly, he asked whether the Parish Council must revoke the contracts on the grounds that it was potentially awarded to a former councillor, and to whether the Parish Council was happy for the contract to remain in place, given the suggestion of a link with a former councillor, and whether revoking the contract would be a breach. He asked whether the Parish Council is therefore paying VAT to a company that isn't registered for VAT, or if it is registered, then that suggests there is a link with a former councillor. Thirdly, he asked if it is still a problem now if there's a link with a former councillor. Parish Council discussed these points and agreed to defer the matter to the next meeting. Councillor Cruden's deferred questions have now been ignored by the clerk on the latest agenda. They've been replaced by a direct loaded resolution without explanation submitted by an unidentified person to ratify the GHL contract. Can you explain why Councillor Cruden's deferred questions have been ignored and replaced by this loaded resolution?
You want to answer that, or you want to take it as no?
Well,
I just,
You don't have to answer it.
well, I would like to know the answer to those questions which were referred to this meeting. So, on the basis that this agenda has the subject matter, and it says to ratify possible resolution to ratify the continuation of the Parish Council's contract with landscape and garden services. On the basis that those questions were deferred to this meeting, can we discuss them?
yes,
Item 14.
I think
He said at item 14. Is that okay? Yeah.
Right.
Later in the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, this final one is minutes from the 27th of March. Minute 223D and E. The published resolution is neither what Councillor Walton put forward for debate, nor what Chair Souter formally proposed and passed as a motion. Can you explain why a passed resolution has been replaced by a rejected resolution proposed earlier by Councillor MacDonald?
Thanks for coming down.
Just say it.
can you keep that there again? I'm really struggling to hear you tonight.
Right. It refers to minute 223D and E from the 27th of March. The published resolution is neither what Councillor Walton put forward for debate, nor what Chair Souter formally proposed and passed as a motion. Can you explain why a passed resolution has been replaced by a rejected resolution proposed earlier by Councillor MacDonald?
maybe not just debate it, discuss it. But Councillor Walton proposed that. Councillor MacDonald proposed that we waited to see what council had to say and then submitted the claim. And Councillor Walton counter-proposed to say let's submit the claim form and then withdraw it if
If we get a good resolution
Yeah,
from
we
there.
get a good resolution.
So there was a proposed amendment that wasn't carried. And we voted for the resolution that's recorded in the minutes.
No, what's recorded in the minutes. A resolution
We
is
know what's
a
recorded
resolution.
in the minutes. Sorry, Gary, what's recorded in the minutes is in black and white.
Draft
On paper.
minutes.
Hmm?
Draft minutes.
Draft, yeah, okay, well,
Subject to change.
Do you understand what a resolution is?
don't be so demeaning to other people, Gary. We know you're
Well,
brilliant,
don't be so
and you know
demeaning to
everything.
me.
Right.
I've pointed it out. A resolution is the words you use in the resolution. The clerk on the video that I've recorded is seen to write all the words down. When she writes the minutes, she simply transcribes what the resolution was onto the minutes, and that's what appears in the minutes. You don't invent a new set of
I'm
words.
not inventing a new set of words. The minutes that I have produced reflect my notes.
If we have a problem with a resolution, then we can come back to it and get it right, if the council feel that is necessary.
I understand that the internal auditor has written on this subject. Can you confirm you've received?
Beg your pardon?
I understand the internal auditor has written to the Parish Council on this matter.
Yes,
Can you confirm you've all had a copy of the internal auditor's email?
This has only been received this afternoon, so not all councillors will have seen it yet.
Okay.
I can say I have, and I will answer. Minutes of previous meetings.
Actually, sorry, I had a question then. So, having received the email from the internal auditor, will you be reflecting on the minutes that it was referring
This is not
to?
an agenda item.
The approval of the minutes is an agenda item.
The matter of what Patrick Cannon has sent is not on the agenda, is it?
But you can ask a question, it's not an agenda, you just don't have to answer it.
Big pardons?
You can ask a question, it's not an agenda, you just don't have to answer it. She was asking the question.
No.
Yes.
Minutes of previous meetings. Approve as a correct record the minutes of the meetings of the council held on 6th of March. These have all been circulated. Are there any inaccuracies? Taken as read.
Do you want it to include just as much?
6th of March.
I can't remember that.
6th of March minutes. All those in favour? Hands, please. 16th of March. Show of hands, please. March.
Can I ask a quick question, please, on the formatting of it? The apologies for absence.
Yes.
If someone was neither present at the meeting nor listed in the apology for absence, does that mean you just didn't hear anything?
Yeah, they have submitted.
Right, okay. It's not like either or.
Yeah.
Right, okay, thank you.
Minutes of 27th of March. Any accuracies?
Can I raise, coming back to the previous question about the item 223E, the result, it appears to me that a lot of the question and debate around this comes down to three words, which is paperwork and claim. That Lindsay mentioned we filed the paperwork and the resolution, and the claim form was written in minutes. That appears to be the nub of all this question and answer around this particular subject. I, for one, understood paperwork to mean claim form. I didn't have a problem with that. Did anybody else have a problem with that?
They understood that that was what we were.
That it was the
doing.
claim?
Yes, that was the claim.
Also, I think that the minutes are meant to be succinct, they're meant to be accurate, but they're not meant to be verbatim.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, and the claim form seems to me to be actually more accurate than paperwork. So, it seems to me that that is a true and correct record, unless anyone can see that I've got something wrong somewhere.
Everybody happy with the minutes? All those in favour? Show of hands, please. Thank you. Right, item 5, finance. Any queries?
I have, so just to explain, I have done a visual statement, monthly statement, because I'm about to produce the end of year, so it seems silly to do one a couple of days before, but that'll be coming out as soon as I can, I hope in the next week or so.
Payments for approval, everybody happy?
Good evening.
All those happy for the payments to be made? Show of hands, please. Trevor, we can stick to your item.
Okay, so, well really, I'm here to report on my discussions with Rob Murphy. I know you had some chat with, I think, Phil Sunquest.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, following that, Rob Murphy said, could we have a chat? And what Rob Murphy has agreed to do, and has confirmed this in an email, is not take any action on the planning permission for the conversion of garages to 4 low-cost houses. And he has said in the meantime, what we intend to do is try out a couple of other schemes elsewhere, Blythe and Ashington, see how we get on, and then come back to Felton in no sooner than 18 months, and then we will do a full consultation again and have another look at the application. So I was very pleased by that, because I know we have been pursuing the idea of a judicial review, and that could be very expensive for us as a parish council, but also for the county council. And I think we have achieved quite a goal as a parish council through the protest and our petition that's taken place. So we haven't got the permission turned down, but they have said it's on hold for at least 18 months, when they'll come back, revisit it, and have another look at the application. I don't know how you, as a parish council, feel about that.
Sorry, you just said 18 months. Is it 2 years or 18 months?
18 months.
18 months.
18 months.
Okay.
And I've got that in a confidential email.
We have heard this 18 months several times, but then the options are completely wide open.
Can I ask a question, Trevor? You said that Rob Murphy told you they were going to look at to implement some other schemes in other locations,
Yes.
and see how it goes.
Yes.
Does that mean that in 18 months' time they might come back to us and say, well, we don't really think Felton is suitable after all, so we're not going to go through the whole process again, we're going to withdraw? What's the point of looking
Yes.
at the
Well,
other
to be
things?
perfectly honest, that was one of his comments.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, well, maybe this policy isn't for Northumberland after all. You're the guinea pig here in Felton, you're the first one.
Yeah.
But, I know they are looking at others in Alnwick and Rothbury. But they must be looking at schemes in Blythe and Ashington. And, I would say maybe in that location, such a scheme has got a better chance of success, because it's in a more urban environment where there's not so much pressure on those garages. But, I think that in a rural setting where, a lot of our villages have got a lot of houses without garages and parking spaces, and I think there is a real need for our garages in rural settings. I do. So I think, that is part of the argument too, which I feel they haven't considered properly.
Thank you.
Trevor, I think there's a big thing being missed here, and is the quality of the environment those 4 little houses are going to produce. I mean, would you recommend an elderly relative of yours moved into a corner like that?
It's not the nicest spot. I completely agree. And, I think, this application has been rushed through. I think, you know, personally as a planner, I think there is a lot wrong with it. But, you know, we've got 18 months to have a real look at it before, you know, we move forward with anything. And I think, you know, that's a good time for us. It's, you know, it's a time where we can really analyse and have another look at the consultation list. As he says, you know, if anything were to happen there, he said we would come back to Felton and chat to them, and because I do think it's been sort of rushed through. It's been railroaded. You know, they've got a policy. They want to deliver it. They would be delivering it if we, as a group of people in the parish council, hadn't challenged them and said, look, you know, this isn't right.
Yeah. Is there any indication that the planning, I don't know which department would push it, are seeing that where the likes of Bellways are suggesting a patch of, say, 100 houses, that the ratio of properties for the elderly are better catered for?
Yes, well, you know, this is something that we've got to argue. If there is this need for affordable housing in Felton, let's make sure we develop it with the private developers, you know,
Yes.
not at a cost to ourselves. But, you know, one thing that I do know is that NCC have invested quite a bit of money in this project, in that, you know, they've got an employee devoted to delivering this project. And it's a project obviously where you get some grant from central government and you also get some money local from a local council. And you see, you know, I think the county council won't want to lose face, but, you know, I feel that our planning arguments are so strong that they outweigh those planning arguments for low-cost homes. You know, we've got an amenity here that a lot of people have cherished and used for a long time, and we don't want it being taken away.
Yep.
You say the county have invested a lot of money.
Yes.
In the early days of this, we were told this was a Husk company's project.
Yes.
Not a county, but a Husk.
Well, it is a Husk project, but they have an officer on the county council, Rebecca Fennick, which is, this is her baby. She's been pushing these projects for NCC. So, you know, they have invested a lot of money in that. They've employed a person to push forward, and obviously, you know, all the consultations that they're carrying out will have cost money. But, you know, at the end of the day, we feel, as a group of people in Felton, we're right. You know, we're not going to give Parliament. We're going to try and make sure that we keep our garages because we feel it is the right thing to do.
I'll let the council member go first.
I mean, I was going to say that even if they've invested heavily in this already, it doesn't still make it a good idea.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes you do have to cut your losses on something. I also think that the schemes and the grants that we might then think that we want to go for and, you know, then invest in things, they've got to be applicable to our area and things. And we've got to also put pressure on central government to provide suitable grants and suitable investment for rural areas rather than, you know, blanketing the whole country as a whole. And there has to be a voice for that, to say that. And I think by standing our ground on this, you know, it is enabling that voice because it will get heard at different points along the chain of things, and we've got to make sure that that does happen because there will be initiatives that are more suitable for us, and if there's not, we need to be pushing for them.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I am. Yeah. This is, you know, it's a government policy that, you know, they're rolling out, doesn't matter whether you're urban, rural or whatever. Well, you know, all our communities are different.
Sorry, I was.
One of the things the council are concerned about, they've got a deadline from the original thing of the 6th of April. Are we 6th of April? Is that right? To get this claim form, to get it in place. If you're saying they're willing to put an 18-month delay on it, can you get it in writing so the council can then withdraw their application and start the process properly, just with the before letter, that they can resubmit this claim, they can get an extension on it effectively for 18 months, because without something in writing, they've got to go for this 6th of April deadline.
I've got the email that confirms the 18 months.
Yes.
You see, Rob Murphy said to me, "Now, Trevor, I am prepared to send you a confidential email." He said, "I don't want it to go around the page." He said, "I don't want to see it bandied everywhere, but it's a letter from the Director of Planning to you as the local county councillor saying that there will be a postponement of any action on this planning permission for 18 months.
But in 18 months' time, if they've not put their claim in, they can just come and build it. So what?
No.
So
They can't come and build it because Rob Murphy has said to me in this email that he's going to sort of more or less start it again, reconsult, and not just enact the planning permission, but, you know, go through all the process and really, you know, speak to the villagers this time, because, you know, as a parish council, I felt we were sort of steamrolled, and, you know, Alan spoke up well there at the planning meeting, but, you know, the sort of planning members were, I don't say mesmerised, but, you know, they were going for their low-cost, for low-cost premises, whereas, you know, I don't think they really considered what Felton was losing. And it's so important. So, yes, we've got a delay of 18 months, but we've also got a promise at the end of that 18 months to have a complete relook if they actually want to go ahead.
I still think the council you need to get Rod to write to the council so they can withdraw their claim form, and then you can all do it amicably.
Even if we were to withdraw, I still don't think that is a legal standard enough for the protection of what we actually want. And I think for us to, because it's still based on a point of trust, and we would actually need some form of covenant and legal standing in place, you know.
I don't think he'll get that, but I think what he's done is as much as he can.
I think it
because it is a planning
with that.
It is a planning provision, but he's, you know, written to me and said that he is prepared to hold back on this for at least 18 months.
Would you be willing to withdraw the application?
I don't think he'd be willing to withdraw it.
But if they're willing to go through the full consultation again, then what difference is the application in 18 months?
Yeah.
If everything was above board and correct and the public consulted properly, then the application should sail through the next time.
And they've got 3 years.
And yeah.
Gary?
There's a council procedure to revoke planning consents. There's nothing to stop them revoking it.
Will they revoke it?
Well, why would they not want to? What have they got to lose by revoking it? They've got everything to gain. They'll have a happy parish council. They'll have a happy.
Yes.
Why would they choose not to? Based on what you've just told me, they're happy to come along in 18 months' time and go through this whole process again.
So,
Well, he said he would reconsult on it.
Well, I'm just pointing out there is a procedure called revocation.
Well, this is what he's suggesting as a way forward.
maybe that's something the council could put forward after tonight's meeting, the revocation, so that.
The claim form we put in, that could be withdrawn. We're not committing ourselves to
We're not committed, we can withdraw that, and also we can also ask to adjourn it, so we can basically say we want to, we can ask to basically pause it, and once it's in, we can say we want to stop things to allow time for alternative dispute resolution, which would include negotiations, mediation, coming to an agreement, so that's I think what will happen. happen. I think that's what I anticipate will happen. The county council will come back. You know, they've indicated that it is just postponing a meeting between ourselves, not cancelling it. So my understanding is that they intend to have that meeting where they talk about options and ways forward, and that we need to make sure we've got enough time for that process to play out, and we will probably have to ask the court, therefore, for more time to let that process play out while protecting our position, which is what we've done.
I would prefer that than to remove the claim form, because because then we have got no.
So what?
I would prefer to ask for an 18-month extension to the claim form process.
We
Because
can do that.
Yes, I think we can ask the court to make to. Yeah.
because they've allowed 18 months, because NCC don't plan on acting for 18 months, we have to have some sort of assurity that they're not just going to wait until the claim form period runs out and then put bulldozers in. And I know and it does rely on a man's word, but unfortunately it's not quite good enough when it comes to what we could potentially lose on the basis that if we hadn't kicked up a fuss around it, the demolition works would be starting very soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've achieved that.
Yes, absolutely, but there is the smallest possibility that this is all a ruse to get us to pull our claim, and then.
That's a bit Machiavellian.
It is, but I think.
County council.
But we
It's
I
just
think
a,
I
it's
think
just a
we
great
asked.
plan.
We now just
absolutely,
ask.
yeah.
We now just
It's
ask for
not
time.
just any man.
We now just ask for time. Can council will presumably want that as well. So then we say now if we submit the claim, we now need time to see if we can reach an agreement outside of the court process.
It's sort of a bit of a tangent, and it's not, I don't think we've referred to it in the claim form, although we referred to the meeting, but at the 6th of June cabinet meeting last year, Councillor Horncastle spoke very eloquently about what he saw to be the huge advantages and the wonders of the Husk scheme. And I think we were all concerned that the Cabinet then, including Glenn, voted enthusiastically in favour of going ahead with the Felton proposal. So we know that quite apart from the planning consent, within the County Council, whatever it is, capital expenditure, housing, etc., there are people who, and there'll be Rebecca who's got a job to look after, who won't want this to go away or run into problems as an early stage. They want it to go ahead. And my personal worry is whether any of them at all have ever been to Felton or have actually looked at the site that they're backing this scheme for. Because we think it's unsuitable, and I don't think we're totally biased.
No, well, exactly. And I think you're right there.
Yeah.
I do think you're right. I'm sure they've never had a site visit. And you see, our arguments are quite different to theirs. We know the site.
Yeah.
We know it's well used. We know people store the stuff there. We know they use them as workshops.
Yeah.
We know there's cars in there. Now, these are all really important reasons for keeping the garages for the Felton folk. And of course, they're just dismissing them. They've dismissed them as much as they're not reletting the garages.
No, and we're asking for information about things that they claimed were the case, and we know they're not the case.
Yes, exactly.
So, part of the claim form, as Gary was saying, is to request and require them to submit information. So I think, there'll be, if we pulled the claim form at this stage, we would not have access so easily to the facts that we feel need to be disputed. And that will be all part of the process in 18 months' time, if there was another process.
Jim?
I think we also need to suggest this other point of thinking is that, yes, the Husk concept is fantastic. And when I first looked at those plans and things, I was saying, this is actually, it's brilliant, it's a beautiful design, and it is a fantastic idea. And I think it's very easy, for that to have been pushed forward, that idea, when we didn't, for those that didn't really understand Felton. And I think if this is, this pilot scheme, the first time it's been rolled out in rural Northumberland, that we were the guinea pig and everything, there is a whole point of a guinea pig and a whole point of having a pilot scheme is that you assess whether or not it is going to work, and there is a benefit of learning that it isn't going to work, and there is also a benefit of learning from the experience and seeing how it can be better rolled out in other rural areas and the pitfalls of that. And that really, you know, we've got to make sure that we are communicating that fact and that learning curve back to county so that it can be of benefit to everybody, rather than us just saying it's you, us against you, rather than we are all on a team with this together of trying to improve, you know, rural planning and infrastructure and communication with the community. And also that they can see that the way that their previous consultation was devised and rolled out of things, you know, it wasn't appropriate in our opinion, and that when they go forth to put it into other areas and things, that they have got a better structure for it and a better way of communicating that Parish Council can actually help with.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I really felt with this is that we had the initial consultation with them. They didn't really like what we had to say about it and what our feedback from was it. And then we were kind of like
Cast
aside because they didn't really want to hear what we had to say, whereas had they actually communicated with us more and had we come back to have a second consultation before they got the planning application in, after they'd downread the numbers and things, and had like kind of a regroup on it and things, we might have actually been able to save them a whole load of hassle. And if those lessons can be learned from this, then this, you know, it won't have been a waste of time and money for them, is my point. And they've got to be, you know, they've got to take that on board, that yes, they've put a lot of money into it, but look at the money that they could have saved had they, you know, just ignored Felton and then tried to go and do it in Alec and Rothbury and everywhere and not made it work there as well. So we've got to make sure that we're all on the same side for this and communicate that effectively.
What are some county council?
Can we move through the people that have their hands up as swiftly as possible? Gary, you had your hand up.
Well, just you keep referring to Rob Murphy, who's director of planning. The more important person is Philip Soderquist, who's head of housing, and this is his scheme, effectively. Now, he's just written to myself and copied everybody in tonight, saying everything's on hold while their legal beagles look at it, and he's speaking on behalf of not only himself but the council. So, in other words, Mr. Murphy isn't actually taking a lead on this. He's a planning guy. Planning's gone through. This is now in Mr. Soderquist's.
Well, it's really, you know, it's for me, it's a planning application to convert garages into houses. Yes, you know, we are providing houses as well, and that's important. But the top man is Rob Murphy. He's, you know, top officer on the county council. Mr. Soderquist is down here and about to leave. But, you know, they're both important, they are. But I would say that Rob Murphy is, you know, he is top of the tree. He's one of the, you know, main players, one of the top people on Northumberland County Council, working in the executive team with Dr. Helen Patterson.
Thank you, Trevor. Would it be a correct summing up to say all we have heard is that everything is merely postponed for 18 months?
Well, I don't think merely. I think, you know, I think as a county councillor, as a parish council, and the people of Felton, we have achieved a lot. I don't think it's right.
Yeah, but what we're hearing is simply they're saying it is postponed.
I think they're saying they're not going to act on it. Right. You know, I have got the email. I'm happy to read it as long as it's not recorded. And
well, can I just say that didn't Glenn Sanderson put up things on Facebook about the delay of 18 months on Facebook? So that is in the public domain, that element.
yes, but Rob Murphy said this is a confidential email to yourself, Trevor.
I'd rather you sent it to the councillors, to be honest.
Yeah. we send it to the council.
I mean, this, you know, this is a public meeting, so
Okay, right, I'll speak to yourselves.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, not at all, you know, it's important. But,
just
you know,
it's more point of information about, by coincidence, we happened to drive past Ellington the other day, and there's an Ascent building site there. Ascent being Northumberland County Council's development arm. And there they have built a row of little bungalows, 2-bedroom, 100 feet bigger per bungalow than these ones. They sell them at £189,000 each. That's a commercial price. These bungalows here, which are converted garages of inferior quality by comparison, are going to cost around £140,000 each, that we know of.
And then going.
Ellington, properly constructed new build houses. Here, converted garages.
yes,
So I think it comes back to this thing about the joint venture that you're saying that both NCC and Husk are NCC and the government funds are financing this, and obviously Husk is going to be taking the profit. So it just seems bringing somebody else into a mix when the NCC through Ascent are actually building very reasonable cost homes.
yes, no, I agree. You see, this particular scheme that Husk are putting forward isn't costing NCC anything at all. Because, of course, central government are providing part of the funding. The other part of the funding is coming from Section 106 monies.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's Section 106 monies I found out from Long Framlington.
Yeah.
Which, again, you know, annoys me greatly. Because, you know, I'm trying to push for a first school in Long Framlington. They say, well, there is no project there to spend the 106 monies on, so we'll spend them down at Felton.
Yeah.
There we go.
Next time, they'll take 106
No,
from government and spend it in live or somewhere.
I'm right on side with you, I am.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Right. Agenda item 6, policies and procedure. To approve the following policies. I suggest we split it into 2 lumps, the standing orders first and then the rest of them as one. So the standing orders, no radical changes, largely cross-references, but other stuff has changed. We've all had copies for a while. The only thing with the big question is the flow chart that was tacked on the back. Not quite sure where that came from.
It came because the original NALC model, the NALC model standing orders have a section at the start, rules of debate, which is quite lengthy and hard to follow, and it's not very clear. So we had taken it out, but when the policy working group was going through our existing standing orders and comparing them with the model terms, it was felt that there was some merit in having the rules of debate should they ever be needed, because if there was something that was particularly contentious on which the council was divided, it would provide a framework within which to have a discussion and propose and counter-propose and provide a format. But, so I produced the flow chart based on what I found online, It basically follows the rules of debate as were listed in the original model, but it makes it a flow chart rather than having it as a list. So that's where that came from. But you know, it's for the council whether they want to have it or not. It just, I think the block of text was unhelpful because I don't think at a meeting you could realistically follow it or practically follow it.
Personally, I don't see a great value in that flow chart. But
See, I'm a visual learner, I like the flow chart.
Yeah, me too.
I'd rather have the flow chart than word.
if you look through the allowed time of talking, we could be there for an hour on one resolution.
But we sometimes talk for a lengthy time.
We do.
And I think that we were envisaging what we've said in the start of the, so under 2A, we've said motions shall be delayed following the procedure of the flow chart if required. And I think the point is that if it was an issue on where there was a lot of varied opinion that we needed to have a structure, it provides that. We don't have to follow it on a regular basis, you know, don't have to follow it when it's not needed.
Straightforward open vote on that. Well, it is included as an optional element of the standing orders, so if it stays there, it doesn't matter. Everybody quite happy with standing order with the new draft standing orders?
Yes.
Right, publication scheme, complaints policy, abusive, persistent, etc., disclosure policy, bring your own device policy. These really are just to confirm they're up to date.
There's a few changes in them, but I put, you know, you'll see at the back there were lots of
Sounds
changes.
acceptable.
The biggest one with the changes was the retention policy, because we went through that with reference to an ALC topic note on it, and our existing one didn't match what they were suggesting in lots of cases, so there were quite a few changes on that one.
All those happy to accept the draft models?
Are they draft?
Well,
Yeah, they're draft until we adopt them.
Right. Proposed. Whatever.
hands up, yeah. I think
I love saying that.
6B, to discuss the suitability of the rough land between the southern edge of recreation field and the river. This is to change the wording for the Retfield policy. Currently, the rough land falls with the jurisdiction of the full council. The Retfield committee have thought for some time that it would be nice to establish a footpath that loops down from the wreck to the riverside and back. But then who's going to be responsible for it and manage it and set it up, etc.?
Sorry, could you just, I didn't understand what you said before we start debating it. Can I ask for a clarification?
That the rough land is now under the jurisdiction of the whole council, or
What's the whole council?
So the terms,
Right.
the Retfield terms of reference only hand over responsibility for the flat playing area
Okay,
and the
right.
and the park. You know,
right.
but they don't go down the bank or deal with the boundary fences.
But they're not entirely independent of the council.
No, they're not. But it's whether if you needed it.
That's what I didn't get, whether you were talking about
No.
council or
No.
something else.
If something needs to be done or we would like something to be done,
Yeah.
the Retfield committee can discuss it and propose actions.
Yeah, but we have to
Yeah.
fund it
We would have to
outside.
The rough land is a triple SI.
no, the triple SI is within the flood plain, within the flood limit of the river.
so that, what, it comes up,
What
I
we
don't
then
know,
do.
about 12, 20 feet upwards. Right, so that up to there is a triple SI,
Yes.
and everything above it, which is quite a bit of rough land, bracken, etc., that's all the jurisdiction of Parish Council.
Yes, but we as a public authority have to pay lip service to the fact that it is adjacent to an SSSI and run any works past whichever authority.
Natural England.
Natural England.
Right. Okay. So it's basically left alone, let the
Yeah.
wildlife have it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
What has crystallised this is the proposal that a footpath is cut and established.
I don't think the word cut is appropriate. I think formalised is going to be better. There is a very clear desire line. Is that the right
Yeah.
term?
Well, I was just there yesterday, and some teenagers went down.
Yeah, there's a very clear desire line that goes down there, and then it does split and fork and go amongst trees. And the idea was, if we were to formalise it, we would actually be protecting more of the area to keep people on try and keep people on a set route, formalise a path there, make it for an area that could be enjoyed by more, be accessed by more, and protect the actual surroundings and try to decrease misuse and disruption of the area at the same time. So that was part of the idea of it, which is why we wanted to bring it into the biodiversity and climate change group and work with CAN on it as well.
That was passed. That was passed to give it to the biodiversity group.
Yeah, but it's who is going to be responsible for it, I think is what we're...
I think, well, we can defer just how it is physically maintained as a viable footpath.
Yeah, it's
For
just
another-
the word cut, I didn't like, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent.
Well, with nettles and brambles and thorns and blackthorn and... Richard?
I have visited this very day an extremely good example of that sort of making a protected footpath that actually protects the environment at Low Newton Pond. So if you go to the ship for a pint of their excellent ale, and then go around the back of the pub and walk south, they've made up proper gravel paths with, or hardcore with a bit of stuff on the top, with a wooden border. And compared to last year, there's a lot of bog around it, and a lot of really interesting plant life and animal life. And that is now protected. They put one or two bits of brash hedging, just to stop you walking off the path. And it's brilliant. You know, it's because you can see things now, and you stop people trampling on them and picking the orchids. So, but we would have to do it anyhow, wouldn't we, if we own the land?
Yeah, but it's just whether...
Not a choice.
The question at the moment is to hand over responsibility to the recreation field.
Who is on the recreation?
John, Gemma, Lindsay, Adam and Chris. Plus Darren, who's a community member.
I think, I'm in two minds about it, because before I was saying, I think it was because I had ideas for it personally and because I was doing the regeneration project. But this sub-project of it, of the footpath, it feeds so much into biodiversity, it feeds so much into the village plan as well, that I do feel that we've got the potential that we could be closing off doors and engagement by putting it onto rec field. And that's something that my mind has, has come round to, because previously I was saying, let's try and incorporate some of it. But that also was about grant applications as well, because when I was looking at trying to get big grant funding for the entire project of doing the rec field regeneration project, it was that I could get funding that incorporated that as well. So I don't know, Claire.
I think we're focusing too much on the woodland walk, because I think the question, this isn't the only time it has come up. It has come up with regard to this. It's nothing to stop us saying, but I think the rec field has had issues where we've wanted, you know, when like Stormar went and we had the trees falling on the fence line, and technically it wasn't, although members from Rec Field were attracted to the solution in that they went out and moved the tree trunks and the tree branches that were pressing on the fence. Really, the boundary fences at the moment should come back to Parish Council for a full decision. Things like that, where the Rec Field committee is unable to take decisions about some of the aspects and issues that arise on the Rec Field because the limit of their responsibility is the top of the plane, you know, is the edge of the green, the grass, and it doesn't extend beyond that. So I think there's definitely, I completely agree with the arguments. I believe that the Rec Field has previously said that it would get biodiversity to look at the woodland walk and that would be a project that they managed. But I think the question is, at the moment, the terms of reference of the Rec Field limit their responsibility to the top, should it be extended to encompass the whole field and the boundaries? That's really the question. And the woodland walk is
So as,
related, but
as long as we're not going to lose anything by putting it.
no, but rather.
On the basis that the woodland walk has already been given to the biodiversity group, are we essentially asking for this land to be part of the Rec Field base so we can make things easier for making decisions and decision making? So the proposal would be then to include that area within the Rec Field committee, but acknowledge the fact that the biodiversity currently have the project.
Yeah.
Until they decide that they don't want to do it.
Or nothing goes down.
Yeah.
Or once it's implemented, and the team.
Yeah.
It simplifies it for me to do
The thing
contracts.
is, if we say we have to have some planned maintenance on the field, such as mold hills and things, if we then include that to the bank side, we would then have to wait until the full council meeting to come back and say it's all right if we put some mold traps on the hillside.
Yeah.
You know, so it's in my opinion, it just ties things up a bit better.
Yeah, there might be a lot of other things.
I was just going to say that, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful ways, but the biodiversity meeting group hasn't met for nearly a year. So I think that putting that land in the remit of the Rec Field Committee is probably actually a good idea because they're meeting more regularly, and as Councillor said, it makes it more joined up. And as there already has been in the past a woodland footpath, there is still remnants of a woodland footpath through there, then it's already established. I think there could also be a link with the biodiversity group and can, because obviously it's all interlinked. But maybe it would be better to be actually within that group, especially if the council thinks that there's added funding benefits for that.
Yes, but I agree with you. But you know, like I just said, the project has been handed over, and until such times as that does come back or nothing gets done, I think we should disregard the walk project from our decision making right now. But certainly put a time limit on it and say, you know, if we haven't, you know, if the biodiversity group hasn't met again, then perhaps we should crack on with it. You know.
Okay, so the simple proposal that the rough land, the responsibility for this area is transferred to the Rec Field Committee. All those in favour, show of hands please. Move on. Thank you. Item 7, committees and working groups. Receive minutes and reports from committee meetings and working group, pages 9 and 10. Right. We've had these, shouldn't be any problems. Redfield minutes. meeting of note has been the clerk's appraisal. This has met. It wouldn't have managed any sort of decent consequence if it hadn't been for Richard and Anne, who brought up to date bearing on the whole matter and saw it to a satisfactory conclusion. Item 8, standing item, parish representation at meetings.
Oh, sorry.
Just the village hall and the fact that they are looking to renovate toilets and storage and things. And I believe we all had communication about our feelings.
I did send it after.
Yes.
And we'll be grateful for everybody returning them because part of our grant seeking, the more public consultation on how to better. So please could you all think about the questions posed there and respond, it would be really helpful.
Item 9, report from a county councillor. We have standing item 10, update on the police.
None, of course.
None, of course. Item 11, coronation of King Charles III. Find that strange.
This was just put on, if you remember, we talked about it briefly last time, so we put it back on.
Who might be doing some celebrating? Or anybody burning effigies?
Yes, well,
You're burning effigies.
we personally as a household are organising a free and open to the whole village celebration, which it has an open invitation. We are having various fun things, hopefully fun things. Scarecrow competitions being one of them. I'll do anything to stop my grass seed getting damaged this year. But we're certainly open to take on anything extra that you would like. So if you would like to have the day marked by doing something, we will take over it. Let us know what you want us to do. So if you wanted to, well, it's not particularly.
I mean, like cheering council and full sponges at. I think it'd be quite a delightful thing to give it a cue.
Great idea.
There we've got some stops.
There have got stops.
Yeah, see?
And we're not stressing you.
No.
We can have this great fairy project or just after that.
Is it actually on the coronation day or is it on the
It's on the Saturday, yeah. On the coronation.
Is the combination on Saturday?
Sorry?
Come after.
I will come after.
Yeah, so it is on Saturday. I will not guess the date, the time rather, but it would be.
Do we know what time the actual coronation's happening yet? We said that in the morning. It goes on for a while, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is there a street light?
We've got our Jubilee trees going on, isn't it?
And last meeting we had a little discussion about something at the top of the village as an entrance, which I agree with quite nice.
I still think a planter at the top of the village with a new sign on, say welcome to Felton, please ride carefully, whatever, would be a good idea as a way of enhancing the village, but also marking the occasion without enforced jollity. Because I'm not always good at enforced jollity.
Yes, we'll take note of that. Gemma?
Okay, enforced jollity.
I know that I mentioned a photo competition last time, but I think I did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I did. But generally, I was thinking about like what King Charles stands for and everything with the youth, rural enterprise, looking after the environment, and that we could put a theme to this to make it to be people doing things in Felton at the time of the coronation that are in the spirit of, Andy Monarch, and that would be a really nice kind of idea for it and things. If we could kind of build on that to actually put a make that into an idea rather than just my verbal diarrhea, that would be great.
So a theme for approach
Yeah,
based on
theme
that.
for it, but like based on that, and you know, and put those up. So I think that's something that would be really taken up well by our community as well.
That would need to start rolling very
It
swiftly.
would do, yes.
How's that going to, who's going to drive that? You're, not you, surely.
No, not me. Not me, because I'm going to be going into semi-retirement in the Caribbean. So I don't know if I'm coming back yet. But I was just giving an idea. It'd be really nice if we could like just put that forward, and then we could then time capture all the pictures as well as, you know.
I just think digital, yeah, I was thinking like it doesn't have to
yeah.
be a physical thing, I think just a digital record somewhere, you know, that people could look through and it becomes part of a village record of what we're up to.
And that'd be really lovely.
Who's going to drive this? Take it forward.
I guess we could do that. We'll probably have to have a chat.
Yeah, we have to chat or
But we can, if we can
together,
feature it
yeah.
into our little village day out, that would be, don't be going into Christmas and
Yeah.
John, I'll volunteer my time as well.
right, excellent.
You have spare
you don't have any time.
No,
We're
that's,
already.
no, it's fine, I can do
That
that.
could be something that you coordinate for the parish voting as well.
That's a good
Because
idea.
you've got the parish coming together on the 24th of April. So therefore you could have things submitted then to go together on the 6th of May.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thank you.
Is that the date, 6th of May?
I'm sure the is the coronation the 6th of May?
6th of May,
I think
yeah.
in my head.
And the 8th is the bank holiday, but the 8th is the bank holiday, which is
bank
confusing, you
holiday.
see.
So, I don't know if you need an exact time, but I believe it's 1 o'clock start.
Your event.
Yeah. And like I said, treat everyone welcome, and hopefully,
all ages.
absolutely, yeah.
And are you going to be running it simultaneously with the ceremony?
Well, the
Like a
ceremony
big
is on,
screen or something?
well, the ceremony will be on before.
Alright.
I don't know if it's a full day event, I presume it probably is. We may have to, technology might let us down, but certainly, we'll certainly have it. Yeah. Sometime.
Right, so we are aware of John's wonderful idea, thank you, John,
And are we taking the village away per planter type thing?
Do we have a budget for all this?
so is it going to be stone, is it
Come
going
out
to be?
potentially come out of street furniture, we've got some.
It would be nice if it was stone and in keeping, but I mean, we could go with barrels like we've got on the bridge if we wanted
If you
to.
put a placard on it,
But
put a
We'll just have to
you
check
could have a
what
back
families
of
will
pines
use.
on poles.
That's
And
regulations.
what's something you can keep low maintenance, really, is what I'm.
Classical architectural design, I think.
Sometimes two
I mean, I know that-
poles of each side.
Stone.
It doesn't have to be put
Yeah,
in
it's well, it's
No,
But like we've got it designed and
So if the bus stop that needs to come down, there would be some beautiful stone from that. That could be repurposed, the Lenton bus stop. Which,
That's very good.
which is again, big
Repurpose it. It's all ideal, isn't it?
we just need to get that blocked out.
Do we have to talk to highways about?
I think we'll have to be careful because they'll have rules about how far it has to be and safety and all that. But there is a stone planter already, so we've got the one that already says Felton, so it's obviously
Yeah,
possible.
but going up to an area that's narrow.
That's what I mean, it's obviously possible, we'll just have to check what with highways, we'll maybe get highways to come out and look at this.
Property management group would suggest itself as responsible persons to this.
He is the chair of that, so that,
Yeah.
It's just, I think he is actually an apology tonight, it's just not.
Vice.
basically.
You are now, with that good advice.
So that we need the design, some design suggestions, even if just vote on somebody else's.
Well, I've been, since you mentioned it, I've been looking for them, and in Ashington they've built stone and brick type welcome to Ashton. And at the top, beside the new industrial estate, they've done an Angel of the North style, deliberately rusty metal obelisk. It looks very good. So if we, potentially the design could be, well, it could be the bridge, but it could be to get proper engagement from everyone in the village. There could be a design competition. As long as people aren't going to make us spend lots and lots and lots of money on it. But if someone, we've got some very what's the word for talented people in this village who
And good welders too.
yes. But potentially we could really mark this the right way. And if we did set a competition up for a picture, potentially we could.
Sorry.
Maybe we should turn ourselves around.
Because I'm eating on a giant lazy Susan so that we
Can we hand this over to the property management committee? Who else is there?
Chris, Ian, John, so it depends on Ian's able to.
So if we email those missing, that's what they've taken on.
The most iconic thing from this village, you would say the old stone bridge and bulldogs with it. But I would.
we can't move the phone box.
So we can't, but we can miniaturise it. Yeah.
Yeah, like the bridge singers do on their programs.
And instead of saying telephone box, we say Felton.
Right. So we sorted
Yeah.
coronation. Right, thank you.
Just get
On and order.
What have we done?
Item 12, Riverside to agree next steps for repair. Now this is dangerous. We've really got to get a grip on this. And
Right, so yes, I spoke to Jamie who did the renovation of our house. I told him that we were desperate. I asked him for his help. He came down and had a look at it and kind of ummed and things. And what he said is he says he knows somebody who's spoken to this person who would be willing to do the work under his supervision and planning. However, he wants us to have somebody official out to come and check the hard standards that it's in. He says if they have to relay concrete down there, you are looking. Sorry.
concrete.
I thought there was.
What
Is there any more posts?
The only concrete used is the post.
Yeah, that's what
I'm talking about.
You check that they're sound.
So if the uprights coming out of those are rotten and it's about relaying the ramp around those, he says it will be within their capability and it would be within the very rough budget that I discussed with him, which is what we've been told we had as a ballpark figure for it. And he says he thinks that would be okay. However, but the person because generally what he does is he kind of gets people working under him, but not employed by him, would be covered under his insurance, but he would want somebody to come out and have a look at it first to confirm that it is going to be structurally sound with his plan. But he says that he would be able to do that in the relatively near future if we can arrange that.
Sounds perfect, really. So the first thing is a detailed survey of the uprights. Off the top of my head, myself and somebody from property management, we go down with a spade, dig them out, give them a clout and a dig, and see how solid they are.
The problem with that's all right, but the problem is if ever it did go wrong, we are not structural engineers.
Yeah, I think
This is all we're asking though. Are the uprights rotten?
I think he wants structural engineers' word to say that it is the go-ahead, so that we've covered all bases with everything, and that was the kind of terms that he was putting down for it.
But if they're rotten, you can see
Well,
they're
yeah,
rotten.
yes.
And then they're talking
I mean, he went
engineer.
down and had a poke at them and things, and he says you're not going to be able to tell properly until you've actually cleared everything and dismantled it. He also offered to say that he could arrange services to take it all down and take it away, which is that's the first step. Even if we leave the uprights in place and then build on it, then it's then a lot safer than the situation we've got at the moment. And he said that would, you know, we could organise that.
That sounds much better.
Yeah.
When it's down to the poles, if at that point we find out that it's not right, you could engage somebody else to come and put new foundations in.
Yeah, because I mean, generally he said it would be pushing us over budget and it would be a big job. He says the price of the materials at the moment is astronomical for doing that type of thing.
Can I ask what the budget?
I think it's what we said, what we agreed with the previous joint.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Well, Trevor Thorne has guaranteed again the pledge of this money.
Yeah.
He said his preference would be to have a more meaningful ramp built of better materials. I didn't really go much further with that because the old ramp's about 30 years old. So how long, how long do you want it?
I mean, if it's going to have to, sorry.
One of the
I'm
problems.
really sensitive thing, and when people are talking in the room, I get discombobulated. I mean, I think because this was what Jamie was saying was replacing like for like for it, yeah.
We are stuck to, because it's an SSI, we're stuck to doing like for like. That is it.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know if there's anything more that we could be doing with its ongoing maintenance after that to make it. Well, I think it's like I say, it's been there for that length of time. What has been the issue here is when it's come up to the point of needing repair, there's been a pandemic and everything has,
Well, something like the property management committee are working towards is a yearly action plan of things that need to be kept on top of. And having a few hours of cleaning down and treating timbers makes them last indefinitely. So that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And
It's not directly related to the ramp, but the fencing on the top of the wall, is there any movement? Have I heard anything as to who's taking that ownership?
I haven't chased that. So we need to get to the bottom of that.
That fence is bad
And
as
then,
well.
yeah. Gary.
There are companies that do steel ramps for various types of structures. I have no idea what the costs are like.
We've had a lot of trouble with Natural England getting.
we can ask because I'm going to have to contact them anyway because they gave me a time frame for the work to be carried out, which was arbitrary and based on the fact it was a certain amount of time from when I contacted them, but they'd taken 2 months to get back to me, which ate into this time. So I'm going to have to contact them anyway to extend it. So we could always ask the question at that point about materials, in how whether it's something they can consider. I guess we just have to provide details of what we're thinking of putting in.
What I probably would say is a galvanised steel lamp that you would need it for being on the riverside, and you're more likely having to redo the foundations, and it'll be significantly in excess of any budget we've looked at.
Right.
But
What is clear also is a lot of the problems have arisen because the silt level has taken out, I would say, the lower 10 foot of the ramp walkway itself.
Yes.
And which is also, of course,
It's covered
come up.
It's covered
Yes.
My question then is, are we allowed to remove silt under the SSI regulations? Because at what point is maintenance interfering with the SSI? Because the two stone seats there are now they used to Orland because the silt's built up under them.
Are you saying we've got a problem in rebuilding the ramp?
No, we haven't got a problem in rebuilding the ramp, but
We're just going to build it shorter, effectively, compared to the original plan.
But then
But then if the water comes up and swirls it all away, you're going to have a drop.
with ongoing maintenance again, we need to know whether we are allowed to use them.
Can I ask?
Add it on.
I can ask, we've got the contact there now.
Any mileage in floating anything past Thurston Council? Because they've got the same problem on the other side of the river.
Well, yes, but then, yes, well,
They've got a Seaton's half bearing, a ramp that doesn't work very well, and something that's getting eroded away. So,
exactly.
have they looked at it? Are they got any ideas, any plans?
the glaringly obvious thing to me is that we have somebody on the payroll for the council that is able to carry out tasks such as ongoing maintenance, like, you know, maintaining park benches and you know, things like that. And we need a better action plan to make sure these things are done, because it's not that the person isn't doing them, it's he's not being asked to do them, or it's not a requisite of his role. You know, I think. Yeah, well, exactly. But moving forward, I think, you know,
Yes.
we need to have a look at stuff like that.
The immediate question is,
They actually built part of the ramp and they did the repair.
the immediate question is what we do next. The consensus appeared to be we ask the contractors to strip it out, except for the principal posts. Everybody care to add anything to that? Fiona?
Just one element was that if the post end up not being suitable, then maybe then a redesign of the actual ramp itself, which would potentially make it cheaper, as in you could have that a one long run behind the monument. There's a potential to redo a simpler structure, which would then bring the cost down as opposed.
Because you know, that tree that came down.
Yeah.
If now that tree's down, you could get rid of half the structure by going through where that tree was.
Yeah.
Now you'd have to make another entrance onto the riverside grass area, but you know, just it would save, you know, maybe 50%.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would be worth looking at. So,
Yeah.
but if it's all taken down and the area is made secure by, well, potentially fencing it off at the moment, then I think we'll be in a much better position than we are now.
Yes. So are we happy to?
Can I just add a small caveat, but in addition to strip out the ramp and then make secure where the entrance was to the ramp as a more permanent sort of solution?
It's got a gate wired across it.
People like go around all sorts of
I'm
ways.
just trying to get that more secure basically than the wire.
Which, the ramp or
Yeah, the ramp.
The entrance to where you
the entrance to the ramp is wired off?
But the problem is the fence to the east side, the west side of that is coming down, so
You can just walk round there.
Well, yeah, we can get around it to the bottom as well, I agree. But the question at the moment is
strip it out.
Strip it out. Are we all agreed on that? Right. Can I vote, please, show of hands?
Right. So
Need
I'll
some
ask Jamie
It
to
can
get
be
on
done.
it and see when he can.
Thank you.
Yeah, try and get it done soon, as whilst the vegetation's relatively low.
Yeah,
Could we have his contact details so that we can?
I'll check if he's happy with that. He's very good to give them that.
Right.
He might not get paid if he doesn't.
Red phone box.
Virtually do it, so.
This wonderful red phone box.
Sorry, this has been on for a while and I haven't really followed up with County Council to chase. They were going to look at the permissions and things for me, but I think somebody mentioned to me recently that we could look at getting a firm, say Lewis, for example, to remove it to,
somebody with a license to work on the street.
yeah, because that would make that would streamline things a lot. It was just whether or not they were going to run it past bridges as well, which I need to check that we've done that or not. So I don't know who suggested, I can't remember who suggested that to me, was it you?
So I would suggest we look at that as a, you know, as the way forward. I think to get past the need for licenses and all restrictions that come with that, we need to approach a company that works on bridges, on paths.
Yes, it's It's an all
and ask them to
a one-stop shop.
remove, deliver, and pick up and reinstall.
Yes,
And there will be a fee involved in that, but
inevitable.
Would it not damage it picking it up and taking it off the ground? It's
The-
cemented to the ground.
it is, yes.
That's part of the problem.
If you open the door and go inside, it's concrete to the ground. But the consensus opinion is that that's broken away, it should come away.
Right.
There may be some damage to the surface of the bridge, which is the technical bit, because the surface is listed.
It's already done, it's already got the concrete. But fluids, fluids should be able to advise on that, so that would be thought, because
But the chap, I had a few lengthy discussions with a Red Phone Box restoration company, and they said their way of removing it was to take the windows out and lift it up from the top. You know,
That's
so
the
it's
side of the car
straight up.
style.
Yeah.
So it's good.
And absolutely every piece of nut, bolt, brass, piece of leather, piece of glass, window frame, and side panel is able to be got. So if anything did get damaged, it could be fixed.
So why is it being taken off in the first place? Is it because you're sort of scratching off the old paint and everything is going to cause problems, or?
It's not just a quick thing on it. It's not just a paint and redo. It needs a full grip blast back to bear, and then it needs pretty extensive surface repairs to the cast, and then it needs all new windows, new hinges, new door. You know, so it does need quite a bit of work, and we looked at getting a company out to work on it in situ, but then we had this offer from Airfield to take it away, restore it, and deliver it free of charge. So, presumably, because it's been such a long time, it might be worth checking that it is still their intention to do it free of charge. Because we did get a quote from a company that could do the repair.
Did I see it was £2,600?
It's about that,
Along
yeah.
those lines.
But that would have been
Us delivering it to them.
no, that would have been the job.
Yeah,
That would have been them coming out and doing the job on the bridge.
they would still need street, because they're so close to the edge, presumably they would still need some sort of street work permit to do it there.
I would think they probably do have that,
Yeah.
because that's what they do for a
For
job.
law, yeah.
They do like bridge ironwork repairs and stuff. So that's where they are.
So what are we agreeing to do?
The cost effectiveness would still be to have it removed, well, depending on how much it costs to have it removed, of course, would be, in my opinion, to take it off, take it to them,
Get Blewett to pick it up and take it.
if they can.
Yes. Who will approach Blewett on this? Does Claire do it, or?
I've got,
You have a contact.
I've got a copy, I speak to is it,
Laura.
which one, Laura, yeah.
Right. So that's what we see as the way forward.
Do we need to check with Bridge and Pipe about capacity at the moment? About whether they've got capacity to do it at the moment, because I thought it was like a winter project rather than a summer thing.
Blewett's.
No,
Airfield.
Yeah,
I think it would be, given the passage of time, I think it would be worth checking before we go down the road of removing it.
Yeah.
Just like tells me, no.
Basically coordinate the removal with
Yeah.
Richard is still willing to.
Translate up to the door and they say, no thanks.
Can I hesitate to ask this? And this is all decided prior to the council. Is there not a question around having the airfield do us a very great favour here? And should we be more neutral towards Mr. Pike and his enterprise?
Previous discussions.
That went quiet.
He is in Thurston Parish Council remit. It is a huge favour. He's not currently asking for anything in return for it, and I think it is a genuine gesture of goodwill, of wanting to do something for local community committee, of which they do other things, and it generally was an offer that, you know, I think we would have come into grave questioning from the public if we were spending taxpayers' money on it when we'd had an alternative option.
It wasn't a question of whether they were doing it for us as a tailor or not. It was more a question of should the council be a bit more neutral towards the area.
Well, I think if we go in the other direction as well, though, wouldn't it? You know, it would be if we said no to them that we didn't want to do it, then that wouldn't be neutral either.
We could be accused of
Yeah.
throwing away £2,000.
By the electors.
I mean, what problems would you envisage would come from this if we were to show an absence of neutrality over this?
Well, I mean, there were. I just feel that the parish council should be neutral, studiously neutral. I mean, it's not within the parish. The airfield itself is not within the parish. They do overfly the parish. 2 plane crashes last year, which we had to ask questions about. I'm not saying neutral or negative. I'm saying neutral, studiously neutral. Switzerland might be neutral. I'm very quiet.
This has been an elephant in the room. Richard?
I might be wrong, but I saw the offer to do this work was made because they've got the technical skills and the equipment, and it had nothing to do with the airfield. Now, you know, in a sense, there's no income, so you know they're not getting an economic benefit that they can then spend on getting more flights in or whatever. So, to me, the issues around the airfield are separate. And I guess if any other contractor or any other organisation came on and said we could do the same job, we would ask the same questions. You know, you're doing it for free. What do you expect in return?
And we do take favours from other businesses that are outside the parish as well.
2,600 quid is quite a big favour.
I'm not trying to I would just say though, Alan, we've never, although we've offered support to Felton Parish Council before, the Parish Council has never particularly supported or opposed the planning application. And it's going back a while now, but I feel my recollection is that they've always been concerned to ensure that the airfield is following what it should, but hasn't particularly had a strong view either way on planning applications, for example. I don't feel like it's not as if, I don't feel it, I think what you're suggesting is that they're going to make this gift and therefore would the Parish Council feel obliged at a later point that that's a statement that they support the airfield and what it stands for. But I think historically, Felton Parish Council has been far less involved with the negative and positive of the airfield than Felton has. We know that there are people in the village that like and enjoy the airfield being on the site. You know, it's not as much of a problem for our parish as it has been for Thurston and Esher. So I would say that I don't think historically there's been a position where we support them or that we particularly stood against them, other than to say to Thurston that we're happy for them to ask us to back them up if we support them.
We're straying away from the agenda item. Have you got something brief?
Yeah, very brief. Just as a member of the public, I support using the £2,600 as long as the council are happy that they are not obliged, not under any obligation to support anything.
I think that's
Ask the question.
That's not one question. And I personally did not go quiet.
I'm putting her Arctic gear on.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to the.
Item 14, contract with JH Landscaping. We have a proposed resolution to ratify the continuation of the Parish Council's contract with John Oak Landscaping and Garden Services. I feel the position is that this has been scrutinised in detail. Anybody have anything new to add? I mean, we are confirming the council sees no evidence that the terms of the contract have been breached in any way. This is my position to kick things off.
I asked 3 questions, and I would quite like to hear the answers.
I think one at a time, words in a syllable.
Words in one syllable.
Sorry, I can't hear
because
just
he
I
is
need
on.
to-
Could you ask you to talk up?
Yeah.
John, can you go back to them on the thing, on the minutes, please, John?
223.
Okay, so you said, first of all, you asked just for confirmation that there was no actual report document sent to the Parish Council by Northumbria Police following the investigation, which we've established that there was no report document, there was only a voicemail and then a follow-up email. Secondly, you said whether the Parish Council must revoke, you asked whether the Parish Council must revoke the contracts on the grounds that it was potentially awarded to a former councillor, and or whether the Parish Council was happy for it to remain in place, given that there was a suggestion that there was this link between the company and the former councillor, and whether revoking the contract would be a breach. So it was a sort of multi-part question, but essentially you're asking, is the Parish Council, does it need to revoke the contract?
Yes.
And if not, is it happy for it to stay in place?
Yes. Does it need to revoke the contract on the basis that there is a connection between an ex-councillor? And if it did, what is the legal impact to the Parish Council? Is there grounds for a breach of contract on our behalf?
I don't think.
Aware of any breach in terms of the original, the original contract.
No. If we were to revoke the contract,
Yes.
does that leave us potentially open to breach of contract?
There are provisions, I would say there are provisions within the terms of the contract, which I cannot recall offhand.
Paying VAT to said company, and the VAT is in the name of the previous parish councillor. Is that a problem going forward?
No, I don't think so. And it wouldn't have been a problem, we haven't, there's the suggestion, so it's an assumed link based on the VAT registration. Now, if there was a link, and if the former councillor had sat at the meeting and put his hand up and said there is a link, and had left the room, the Parish Council would have been free to enter into that contract. The link isn't the problem. The problem is that there's a potentially failure to disclose, thing. So, I think what we're saying is,
No, yeah, because the thing about the VAT hasn't been bottomed out, then is the contract, who have we awarded this contract to, and if it is former councillorhood, then that wasn't necessarily what I voted for.
You voted, the voting was for the cheapest contract.
no, but,
The vote was to award John Hood Landscaping the contract for the maintenance of the village.
Which was the cheap, because it was the cheapest.
But a member of the parish council owns that business, potentially.
That's
So what I'm-
actually,
No,
careful there.
well, no, I shouldn't be
You're saying
careful there.
potentially,
Yes, well, there's evidence to prove that the VAT is being paid from the parish council to former councillor. So, because we haven't got any cast iron proof that it is or it isn't, that we have the VAT certificate to
yes.
presume it is. Should we be revoking the contract? And if we do, is there a legal burden on us? I'm playing devil's advocate.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think that's a very, I think we would need, possibly we need legal advice on that, because I would be confident saying that there was a breach or wasn't a breach.
What is the company structure of JH Landscape? Is it sole trader?
Well, we've been told it was a sole trader.
It's a
We've been
sole
told
trader.
it was a sole trader.
So the contract then is between Felton Parish Council and the sole trader known as JH Landscape?
Yes.
Yes. The VAT is registered in the name of the former councillor.
Yes.
As I understood VAT registration, it just means that you're the one who's liable if you get it wrong. I mean, actually setting up with I've done it on computer systems before. It's actually fairly straightforward. But the point is you have to get every single dot and I dotted and T crossed. And if you get it wrong, the VAT man's after you with a large knife.
Yes.
But the contract is between the parish council and JH Landscape, not between the parish council and the former councillor.
Who is JH Landscape?
You can't.
Hang on, please.
I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything that prohibits the parish council from awarding a contract to a company where one of the councillors could be a director or even an employee. What is not allowed is for that councillor has to ensure scrupulously, and so does the council, that councillor doesn't influence any decisions. So, they have to be out of the vote. And my understanding is that, the contract goes back a number of years, presumably, and I don't think there's the question of whether Tony ever voted for his son's business to be the contractor for this work. There's no evidence, there's been no discussion. It's only arisen recently because we actually asked for, which could be a mistake, we asked for a vote in favour of awarding more than one contract.
There was
And there was a recommendation from the contracts working group that said
we have the two.
we want these two contracts affirmed by the council. It was put as a single vote, and Tony should have made sure he wasn't involved. He put his hand up, but he didn't influence the decision then.
It was two separate votes, Richard. Clearly two separate votes.
No, just,
It was two separate votes, Richard.
Sorry?
It was two separate votes.
I don't know. Well, I don't recall it being two separate votes. We could look at the minutes. He might have been the chair, but I was there as well. So, I don't know what other people's recollection is. We can check the minutes. But even if it was two separate votes,
He was accepting the recommendations of the working group.
you think Tony was voting in favour with other councillors for that contract? I think that's wrong.
You haven't got a contract with John Hood Landscaping. You haven't got a piece of paper with John Hood Landscaping written on
We
it.
have an agreement with the contract, with all the legal elements that make it a contract.
You told me in an email that the owner of that company was the son of ex-councillor Hood.
Correct.
Correct. Ex-councillor Hood is the VAT-registered owner of that business. When this was pointed out at the council meeting, ex-councillor Hood shortly afterwards resigned from the parish council. He has not provided a single word of explanation as to why he is the VAT registered owner of that business.
He is holding VAT liability. That is the only solid fact about that we know, isn't it? John Hood Landscaping is trading, his functions under his own name, nothing else.
Sorry, say that again?
John Hood Landscaping is trading under, it is run by the Sun, period.
Managed.
Run by the Sun. Managed.
Run and managed.
No, managed. That, on the actual document, in the bid document that he submitted, he put himself down as the manager, not the owner. So let's just be clear about this, and let's not try to mislead. I would like Mr. Croon to actually give a bit more information about how he views VAT registration and what that means from an ownership point of view.
My own personal take on the VAT registration, and I am VAT registered, is that the person with the financial responsibility is named in the business as the VAT registry. So, in my opinion, if somebody holds the VAT registration certificate for a business, then they must be connected to said business. However, Tony did say that it was a mistake. But if it was a mistake, it hasn't been rectified. And that is where my question comes from. Because the mistake hasn't been rectified, it does raise the question of whether former Councillor Hood does have a part of that business, and if it does, where do we stand on the contract? Now, as a footnote to that, the work being done, I am in thorough agreement that the work being done should have been paid for because it's work done. But moving forward, I would like this to be brought to a conclusion, so we don't have to keep going back over it. But where do we think our position is? In my opinion, holding the VAT registration for a business is a financial connection.
So if you feel that the vote at the time if you feel that the vote at the time you would not have voted the same way, or that you wished you'd have that information in order to vote whether or not you would have voted the same way.
My recollection was the vote was do we accept the opinion of the contracts working?
Yeah, and the contracts working group have done an analysis of the three. So I think the question is, if there's any question over whether people would have voted the same way.
Not have another conversation. Sorry, I can't hear either.
I think the question is if there's any question over whether people would have voted the same way had they known that information, then I think this is what the point of the proposed resolution that had been put forward was, to say that we ratify, that we are now, in knowledge of it, ratifying the continuation, or not, if that's not what the council votes for. But I think the point is that if there's any question of whether it would have been appointed, then we should re-vote now whether we wish to continue with it, knowing that information, because the contracts working group carried out a review that, they had the quotes in front of them. It was challenging to find 3 quotes for a start, because there were lots of companies that didn't want to quote, that declined to quote, for an example. We only got the 3 that we needed. They were assessed and scored, and then a recommendation was put forward. John Hood Landscaping was the cheapest. We did feel that one of the companies gave more thorough answers, but they were considerably more expensive. So looking at the score, when it was scored, John Hood Landscaping came out on top on the combination of the price point and what he had said in response to how he would deal with the contract. So I think that was the recommendation that got put forward and voted on. There's now this shadow over it because of the potential connection. If there's any question that people would not vote the same way, I suppose my suggestion is that we do what it says, we vote on whether we ratify the continuing contract or not, because then we're saying at this point, in full information, we're happy for that contract to continue, or we're not happy for it to continue. And if we're not happy, then the question is what next? Where do we go next? Are we just not happy altogether with that company? and we would exclude them from a tender, or are we saying we would re-tender, including that company, etc.? So I think that has to be the route that we take. Are we happy to continue now in the knowledge that we have,
Well,
or not? And then
I would find it easier to vote for if, as in, I would find it easier to pass judgment on if the question was, given the evidence, the contract would be re-awarded to JHL or not. Because to ratify, sorry.
what do you want to leave it at?
So to ratify means to allow it to continue and
Yeah.
to confirm. And by ratifying the current contract, if there is a shadow over it, are we then just saying, we know there's a shadow over it, we're all right with it?
There's only a shadow over that vote and the information that we had at the time, because we're saying that we didn't necessarily have the full, are we saying we didn't have the full information, or are we saying that we still need information?
Well, I'm happy that the vote that I made was to accept the contract work group's decision. So I'm happy with that.
And their decision was based on price and the answers given as to the method of work, of the schedule of work, method of work. That's what that's what they assessed the tenders on.
So this proposed resolution to ratify the continuation of the Parish Council's contract with John Hunt Landscaping and Garden Services, given the information that we now know. Because voting to continue as we're going on is not bringing this to a conclusion. I think this needs worded slightly differently to say, given the possible connection, given the fact that we now know there's a grey area. But by all means put it to a vote. But
No, but you can change the wording, it's just a proposed resolution, isn't it? I think. Change the wording if you want.
The wording we have to say is substantially the same. Because
They don't. We can propose an amendment and pass the amendment, and then the resolution as ready falls.
Have not the external auditors looked at this and come to the conclusion that there's...
No, they haven't finished looking at it.
They haven't finished looking. Okay. Should we defer that decision until after they differ?
No, I think,
do we have an amendment to this proposal?
it would certainly make it easier for me to pass a judgment on if it was amended. However,
well, what do you want to do?
I'm not prepared to make an amendment because then it's a predetermined decision. So
Well, it's not. It's not. It's
No,
just
I'm-
a process.
I'll be honest with you, I'm unhappy with that as written.
But if I propose an amendment saying, given our knowledge of or our lack of knowledge, confirmed knowledge about the ownership or the bank registration, we are still prepared to reaffirm the contract, or the words to that effect, with John Hood Landscaping, then we can vote for or against. Because I think we've got to acknowledge that there was a snap at the time, and the chairman will confirm that.
When you're discussing all this, can we have confirmation of who owns who the other party is you are making a contract with? John Hood Landscaping and Garden Services is a trading name. A trading name is not a legal entity. So if you have got a contract with a sole trader named the son of John Hood, then you need to make that clear. Or if it's owned by ex-councillor Hood, that needs to be made clear. John Hood Landscaping is a trading name which is not a legal entity, and it can't enter into a contract.
Just to follow that, I would like to reread exactly what he signed.
Just for Richard's benefit, 150 December 2021 minutes, the grass cutting contract and the landscaping contract were put out to tender and each resulted in a number of responses. The chairman noted that some of the information, for example pricing, was commercially sensitive and emphasise that the Parish Council wishes to encourage companies to tender in future. The Parish Council will therefore respect the commercial sensitivity of the tenders and will not discuss the quotes in public. The quotes have been assessed against the tender scoring document by the Contracts Working Group, and the results have been circulated to councillors with the tender documents as required. Councillors did not have any further questions. Resolved 150A to award the grass cutting contract to ROL for 3 years. 150B to award the landscaping contract to John Hood Landscaping for 3 years. 2 separate resolutions.
But did we take 2 votes?
Yes.
We did, okay. Well,
Yes, and he voted on both of them.
And you were not aware of any problem then?
I looked at Claire at the time, who's my responsible financial officer, and that's all I can do, take my legal advice from my responsible financial officer.
That's what it said at the bottom.
Yes.
There's the sole trader.
Yes.
There's the sole trader.
That's
That's what it's declared. But that is my understanding of that. Or on behalf of myself, it's him declaring him as a sole trader.
So John Hood is the
Yes.
sole trader, trading as John Hood Landscaping.
John Andrew Hood,
John Andrew Hood.
as opposed to John
It doesn't say
Andrew.
John Andrew, it says John had done the.
Right.
It is, and it is his signature.
He's a sole trader.
Yeah.
So the contract then is between him and us.
Yes.
Yes. It doesn't have to be a signed contract, does it? It just has to be an offer of a price and an acceptance.
What we said.
Yes.
Offer and acceptance equals
For the work.
Yeah.
The who.
So we don't have to have a written contract with signatures at the bottom or that jazz.
No.
Right, okay.
It's not a land contract. Not like a house. It has to be in writing.
In that case, carry on.
So,
Put this to vote.
so Richard's
You're happy to put this?
Just a second, so Richard said that so given what we know of the VAT registration, that he's proposing that we ratify or that we vote to continue the contract or affirm the contract. Is that to affirm the contract? Is that your wording? Given what we know of the VAT registration, is the Parish Council happy to affirm the contract between itself and John Hood, trading as John Hood Landscaping?
That is, I think that deals with
Wording
your
off the bottom of his form.
issue.
Yeah.
Use the
Yeah.
wording without this.
Well, he says as on behalf of myself, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Sign names John Hood, possession manager, for and on behalf of myself.
Can you just confirm that's the son and not ex-councillor Hood?
Yes, because he had
You keep referring to John Hood, well, they've both got the same name, so you need to use the middle name.
Tony Hood.
Sorry?
When we say John Hood, we mean the son. When we say Tony Hood, we mean the father.
We will take the signature as the identity.
Well, he handed it to me.
Yes. So,
Do we, I'm happy to second Richard's proposal. If we want to tell their amendment.
are we happy? Right.
I'd be uncomfortable voting on this until we've heard back from the auditors, but is that going to be months or is that going to be weeks? Do we know that answer?
We don't know the answer. I'm assuming it will be soon because they're wrapping up because it's the end of their contract.
I think the auditors might be critical of governance processes, but they're not going to give us the legal advice.
Yeah.
We would need to go to a solicitor rather than the auditor.
I think they would be looking at the original decision rather than.
Yeah,
I don't think they would be.
and I think
Because what they've said in the past is things like that they don't, it's a policy decision, it's as long as we're not acting, we are entitled to enter this contract. We are entitled to enter a contract, and I don't think they would just look at the process and whether we had followed our own procedures.
what my feeling of how they've looked at things previously has been.
For the moment, it is 2 hours since we started. We could either close the meeting now, or we agree to carry on.
Carry on, but I'm going to have to break.
So we're just having a break.
Maybe 10 minutes.
For 5-minute breaks.
Do you want us to wait or continue?
You can continue without me.
So, are we,
Not to continue.
Sorry?
We need to continue.
I think maybe just a 15 minutes.
No reason why not. Vote to continue.
Yes.
All in favour?
We got halfway through having an amendment proposed and seconded, and did we vote?
No.
No.
Right.
Can you read out the amendment?
Right, I've said, no, I'm not. Given what we know of the VAT registration, the Parish Council is affirming that, affirming the contract between itself and John Hood. And then I've put as myself, because that's what he's, as himself, because that's what the word is written on there.
All those in favour?
It'd be interesting to see a check. So, I would like to see a check.
Check.
Because a sole traded business is written, whoever's name it is trading as, on a check or on a bank statement or. And I, you know, we have asked for further improvement and
Good point. It's great.
my checks say John Crucial trading as the box then.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And if that information relies the look, you know, this is able to be clarified. But it is surely needs to be done by the board, fine.
It's called due diligence.
Okay, could we have a reading of the amended resolution, please?
Given what we know of the VAT registration, the Parish Council is voting or not to affirm the contract between FPC and John Hood trading as himself. Well, sorry, John Hood as himself. Unless anybody wants to amend that further.
Sorry, can you just go over that again?
Given what we know of the VAT registration, I'm starting to feel that this is the Parish Council is affirming the contract between the Parish Council and John Hood as himself.
All those in favour, please show. What, are you abstaining or are you against? What, those against? 2 against?
No, I'm not.
He proposed it.
It's a bit slow getting me on there.
Fine, thank you.
Right. Item 15, Parish Council leaflet to households. I suggest
Not going to need more than 15 minutes.
Start after the vote.
You start, no, you
Can I
start.
just say they're all going to be able to fill in my questionnaire about the toilet room now, so move it so frequently.
I have told the Scout leaders about it.
Oh, brilliant, thank you.
So, don't know what our teenagers think of it.
Whilst it's gone on, can I just ask on the toilet, because I hear there's talk of it being like a combined toilet or something? Is that
A
right?
unisex.
A unisex toilet?
Well,
I take it that would just be complete cubicles, would it?
yes.
Right.
There would be no urinals.
That's, I just had visions of France where my wife walked in to find the
Yeah.
chap we were skiing with.
But there would be some mirrors.
And the holes in the ground.
But I was just saying, because some men don't like that as well as ladies.
Yeah, it's a total up in the air at the moment, because originally it was that we were going to go the unisex route, because people had been to Long-Hatton, I think, and seen the toilet there,
Right.
and we're quite impressed. Plus, we were desperate to find storage in the hall, so by sort of knocking two into one with the disabled and having a proper cubicle for a stool or bag and things like that, it meant that we were going to gain space quite considerably.
I'm talking about village or leaves.
But now, the unisex thing is, do we need to? Do we want to go that way? Do our people want that? So, sorry.
Come on, you want to do if you don't stop talking about it.
Item 15, Parish Council leaflet to households.
Yeah.
In accordance with Standing Order 11A6, I am suggesting we defer this to the last item.
Sorry?
Just
He wants to
rearranging
move
the
to the
order.
end of the meeting.
Becomes the last item.
Okay.
So, correspondence, to receive the list, page 11.
I think I'll go now. We can carry on. I've looked at the correspondence. Oh. It's getting stiff with all the sitting around. Any recommendations?
Have you got any questions on the correspondence? I know you've seen most of
Any
it.
questions or comments on correspondence?
You've probably seen most of it.
Yeah.
Did we ever get any evidence of the fact that the garages?
Yeah, I've got it, but it only corresponds to block C. There's nothing else that I needed to have stuff to say about that survey.
But also the thing is,
The main thing that came from the back survey is that it's the only place in writing that still talks about the demolition of block A.
the thing about it as well though is that the ecologist recommended and therefore the case officer recommended that before any work was carried out there would have to be back checks, etc. So it kind of covered all the points. So I think even if there are bats there,
No,
mitigation
I just
measures.
wondered whether it was found out, because people kept saying it had stuff, but they didn't seem to pass it on.
Also, the roof's temporarily long term as well.
It's really, well, it is annoying because, I mean, our building is different, but we had to have a spring survey done. And in a lot of it, it says that at a minimum you should be having a spring survey done. But it does seem to say that they've, you know, explained their way around a lot of it and things. The tone is different, if I put it that way. You know, they enthusiastically seem to want to find bats in my house.
Anything else? Okay, correspondence, sorted. Planning. List of ongoing planning matters, page 11. 10, 11, that follows. The Oval, the school, land south of Felton fence, plan 23 South View. And then 17B.
That was just in case, I don't think we need anything, we're just now waiting for the meeting, aren't we? But it was in case we needed to agree anything, but I think we're waiting for the meeting with NCC is the next step.
Ongoing matters.
I haven't circulated because there was very little update due to working pretty much non-stop on planning. I've updated it, the spreadsheet, to just reflect the discussions that we had about the building at the last meeting. And other than that, it'll be pushing on with and moves on from that onwards.
See the guy's been at the lock for the last few days.
No, I'll
Yeah.
about that.
It's got some nice shrubs lined up outside it.
Surely he needs to make it.
Just lots of plants.
Okay. Okay, item 19, items for next agenda.
So we pick the hand and the phone box.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Can I suggest one?
Yeah.
That we should start recording meetings for our own purposes on video. I'd be happy, I've got a video camera. Given a few it might take a couple of meetings just to sort of iron out the bugs, but it's just a question of setting it away, recording, sort of starting it to record, stopping it in the meeting, getting a big enough disc to hold that.
Would that be helpful for you, Blair?
Yeah.
Something
Well, we'll talk about it next. We'll talk about it next time.
on the agenda.
So that goes on. Right, Richard.
There has been a suggestion, which I've made several times, and I think other people thought might be an idea, which is to be able to project papers
I'd
and
really like to do that.
drafts, so that because there's
It's
quite a lot of trees we're
Yeah.
using up.
See the screen down there?
Yeah.
That's the one on that wall.
Yeah.
There is a projector that can be hired from the village hall
Is there?
to use.
That would be good, we just need to, and if that would just plug into the laptop.
To be fair, the screen would have been open for somebody to record.
But I can't do it because I can't even tune my telly to Netflix. My kids have to do it for me. Sadly.
I do it on average 7 times.
I'm good at mending washing machines, but no good at tellies and stuff like that.
Right. Items next. Back to item 15, Parish Council leaflet for households. Degree, content and format, etc.
I'm sorry, I only have just managed to skim through that this afternoon. To me, it does need a cull.
Yeah. I just wanted to put everything in
Yeah.
because I thought it
Converting
needs
some
to
of
take
it
stuff out.
into infographics,
Yeah.
making some of it more pictorial. I also, I don't know if we've got time to get some mug shots on there.
Oh, beam me up,
Have
please.
you lot? Have you lot?
Sorry.
Have you lot?
We've got most of
Yeah.
them on the website.
No, we don't
No,
know.
I do, but like just to have, yeah.
I think it's only Richard.
That one I took myself,
Yeah,
that was
use
awful.
them.
No, I know,
I
but
don't
I just wanted
mind,
to put
use
some
it,
things, I
use
thought
it.
it's easier to take some out of it than.
Yeah, yeah. I just,
Good idea.
if I can't read it, then I'm not anticipating that everybody else will. And I think we can.
Cut it down, I'm happy, I'm not offended.
And I thought it was going to be a 5, not a 4.
I think it's just a five, isn't
Well, I don't know, I think,
it?
If you could just edit it to E5.
yeah.
It's just delete it and print it.
But this is what I mean, I wanted to speak to you before I start, because if we can cut it down, we can polish it onto A5, but I just didn't want to start doing that, because I remember last time, was it not, did I not produce something and then we had to reform it, massively reformat it to get it
Yeah,
to
the
fit?
village looked.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
So I thought I didn't want to start reformatting a particular,
In terms of
until I know what it needed to be like.
Can we mention the name of the plan?
Yes, sorry, thank you.
There's a spare page near the back you can have.
And also, I think a lot of the very detailed stuff could be put into HTML links.
Yeah.
And also, if you produced it with a QR code, so I can produce one. Someone could shoot that would take me directly to the
Yeah.
council website, or even that particular,
Yeah, okay.
for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, okay.
Shows we're up to date.
So, and there's a
Modern
couple of, what I think
Oh,
would be
no,
good is
sorry,
there's a
that's
couple of
modern
people,
kid.
if there's a couple of people that get some time to sort of like do that culling, whittling down job with me, I'm happy to do that, just, oh, sorry, my formatting was I just want to get things down.
Yeah, it's not about it, it's the detail and content on the screen.
So Richard and Adam are going to help me,
And I'll do it from the print.
and you'll do it from a print perspective. So if we just produce copy and then you can tell us how to format it. Yeah, no.
Doesn't involve road tracks or anything, digging drainage, trenches.
Well, when it depends how big it is.
So, when are we, what,
We want to get it out as soon as ASAP really, because we'd like, the idea was that it would come out before the,
and invite people to the parish meeting, out and distributed?
so that's only 3 weeks.
So how do we decide?
So we've got really 2 weeks to produce it, and then that gives us delivery a week before.
I would say about to get it done this week.
Yeah. That's
How-
what we have.
What about getting sign off on the final text? Because
I think if everybody's happy generally, if with the premise that we're writing it down, removing the detail, putting that into separate documents, then I think as long as there's a couple of people happy to go through it, I think,
I go with that.
and then just email around the final version for people to sort of yay or nay.
Not in my name.
You're gonna have your mug shot on the back.
I think we'll be distributing it.
We're
We're
gonna
going to
have
have to hand deliver it.
to, yeah, I think so.
Perfect. That's right. We're very good at hand delivering that.
Do they not get a badge for that?
I will do.
There's a lot of very outlying areas as well that we're going to have to make sure we cover.
We'll bribe the scouts with sweets.
Well, that's the thing, can we just probably route some.
Yeah, we got Easter cards from the beavers.
How come?
I don't know, we got 2 on the doorstep.
Have we?
So I think the plan is, it approves, everybody approves in principle with a decent edit, I think quite a vicious edit of it, to reduce it.
Yeah.
Make the information more manageable, take the detailed information out, just like documents. And it's going to look over it from a format point of view. These two are going to help me with finalising the copy. Email round.
And
Yeah, I think if everybody's happy with that approach.
Does this need to be agreed properly before we show pens?
Yes, please.
yeah,
At this point, yes.
and then mugshots included or not included?
Would you like mugshots in?
I think
Yeah,
it's
I
all
think we
good.
need faces.
Like,
It's a bit more personal.
Okay. Maybe, you could all do that thing, you know, when you do tea towels for primary school, draw your own picture. Sorry, the time's getting to me because we're at the end of the week.
All those in favour of the approach? Date of next meeting, 15th of May 2023 at 7:15. Here's the hall. Time is now 9:32.
Does that mean there's not another parish council meeting next Monday? I've only missed 3 quiet days.
No,
that's what if you want.
just come here by
Oh,
yourself.
then have the manually just take this opportunity to say a massive thank you to Claire and
Yeah.
actually on the absolute soul that's been passed on me.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Very good. And she did help with the proposal thing. The Claire had prepared, I think the rest of us would have been struggling slightly.